As you know, the Secretary General is in Madrid, and today he spoke at the opening of the UN Climate Change Conference, otherwise known as COP25. He thanked the government of Chile and Spain for working together to make this conference possible. Such solidarity and flexibility are what we need to beat the climate crisis, he said. The Secretary General urged world leaders to listen to the millions of people around the world, particularly young people, who are calling for them to do much more to tackle the climate crisis. He stressed that this is not just the job of one person, one industry, or one government alone. We're all in this together, he said. He added that the green economy is not one to be feared, but an opportunity to be embraced, and stressed that the transition from gray to green economy needs to be a fair one, taking into account the people whose jobs and livelihoods are impacted. Open your ears to the multitude who are demanding change. Open your eyes to the imminent threat facing us all. Open your minds to the unanimity of the science. The Secretary General also called on parties to the conference to achieve progress on key items, namely achieving success of Article 6 and continuing to boost ambition to new and revised national climate action plans due next year. A few moments ago, he held a joint press conference with the President of the Government of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, in which he thanked Spain again for its impeccable organization of the Conference of Parties and their cooperation with the Chilean government. He also spoke at the Climate Vulnerable Forum, in which he reiterated his commitments to small island developing states and least developed countries to keep fighting for increased ambition on climate action. And also at the round table of heads of states and governments, he called on world leaders to lead and not lag behind business, youth, and local authorities who are already taking bold actions and steps to tackle climate change. Yesterday, you will have seen he gave a press conference in which he stressed that our war against nature must stop, and he called particularly on big emitters to step up their ambitions, adding that without their participation, we will not be able to reach our goals. All of his remarks have been sent to you, and the Secretary General is also having a number of bilateral meetings with leaders who are attending the conference, and tomorrow he is expected to meet with His Majesty King Felipe VI of Spain. And also from Madrid, the Secretary General yesterday appointed Mark Carney of Canada as his new Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. As Special Envoy, Mr. Carney will focus on implementation of climate action with special attention to significantly shifting public and private finance markets and mobilizing private finance to the levels needed to achieve 1.5 degrees centigrade of the Paris Agreement. Mr. Carney, who is currently the Governor of the Bank of England, has held numerous positions in finance in both the private and public sectors. More information on our website. The Deputy Secretary General Mina Mohammed is in Dakar in Senegal today, where she has participated in an international conference on sustainable development, sustainable debt. She will also meet with senior government officials, the UN country team, and other UN entities while in Dakar. She returns to New York tomorrow. And today is the International Day for the Abolition of slavery. This observance aims to stress that slavery is not a historical relic. According to the International Labor Organization, more than 40 million people worldwide are victims of modern slavery. Though modern slavery is not defined by law, it is used as an umbrella term covering practices such as forced labor, debt bondage, forced marriage, and human trafficking. Essentially, it refers to situations of exploitation that a person cannot refuse or leave because of threats, violence, coercion, deception, or abuse of power. In addition, according to ILO, more than 150 million children are subject to child labor, accounting to almost 1 in 10 children around the globe. And the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, just concluded a visit to the Democratic Republic of the Congo to follow up on last week's violence. He was in Beni on Saturday, where he visited UN peacekeeping offices that were partially burnt down last week. He also met with local authorities and the Congolese military leadership currently carrying out operations against the Allied Democratic Forces armed group, better known as the ADF. Jean-Pierre Lacroix said his visit was one of solidarity with the population of Beni and with the UN staff deployed in the area. He added that he understood the population's anger following the killings of more than 100 people by the ADF in just 1 month, but stressed the need to avoid fighting the wrong enemy. The UN and its partners, including the Congolese security forces, must do more to protect civilians, he said, adding that the attacks against the UN were planned and fueled by manipulation. Mr. Lacroix also visited Biakato, the site of another attack that killed 3 Ebola response workers and injured a peacekeeper. There, the head of peace operations emphasized the need to ensure that the Ebola response remains fully operational. And in Goma, he met with the governor of North Kivu, and in Kinshasa today, he held meetings with the Prime Minister and other stakeholders. Meanwhile, in the eastern DRC today, new protests took place in Beni, with some deaths reported by the Congolese police. As the situation remains volatile, the UN Peacekeeping Intervention Brigade and the Congolese Armed Forces patrolled an area taken back from the ADF just outside of Beni. And also in the DRC, Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the World Health Organization, was also in the eastern part of the DRC today, where he visited health workers impacted by recent attacks on Ebola response staff. In Goma, Dr. Tedros reiterated the steadfast support to the impacted communities and to the government of the DRC to bring the Ebola outbreak under control. He also commended the work of health workers. He called for improved security in the region to protect health workers to help contain Ebola. And the UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, Mark Lowcock, announced a $3 million contribution from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to help people impacted by severe floods and mudslides and landslides in Kenya. The funds will allow the UN and other humanitarian organizations to provide emergency food, livelihood support, shelter, and health services for the most vulnerable people in the hardest hit areas. It will also be used to improve access to safe drinking water, as well as hygiene promotion campaigns to prevent water and vector-borne diseases. The storms have caused destruction and damage of houses and health facilities and schools and displaced thousands of people and disrupted basic services in 32 of the 47 of Kenya's counties. And just to flag that the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, will begin a 3-day visit to Costa Rica tomorrow. She will meet with the President, several ministers, and the President of the Supreme Court, the legislatures, and the ombudsperson. She will also engage with civil society organizations, including indigenous associations, trade unions, and youth movements. And in eastern Ukraine, nearly 500,000 girls and boys continue to face grave risks of their physical health, psychological well-being, according to a UNICEF report today. Despite recent developments intending to protect the rights of children impacted by eastern Ukraine more than 5 years-long conflict, these children continue to go to school with bullet holes in bomb shelters and live in neighborhoods that are intermittently shelled and littered with landmines. UNICEF stressed that a political solution is long overdue and called on all the parties to halt the fighting. And just lastly, delighted to report that 2 more member states have paid their regular budget dues in full. Thank you to Papua New Guinea and St. Kitts and Nevis, which brings us up to 138. Maggie Bashir.
Hi, Steph. Okay, I'll start with that since you mentioned the budget. Any news from the U.S.? Because now we're in December, and usually they pay late November.
Yes, we've had a number of payments by the U.S. over the last few weeks of about $563 million. And they are now also fully paid up for last year's regular budget dues.
So what's left for this year then for them? If they've paid last year and part of how much that was last year and how much of it is this year?
They are still. I have to check how much they exactly still owe for this year, but it was. We're very thankful for the partial payment, and we continue to be in discussion with them.
And then, did I miss a statement over the long weekend maybe on Iran protests? Has the SG said anything?
We've remained concerned about the situation in Iran and the violence that we saw during the demonstrations and the significant death toll. And as we said last week, we echo the statement made recently by the High Commissioner for Human Rights.
And can I get one more? And then I'll leave you in peace. Albania says they need some help with the earthquake. And you mentioned earlier last week, right after it happened, that I believe an assessment team had gone.
Yeah, we had,
where does it all stand? And what are you going to do to help them?
Yes, let me get, I should have had an update on Albania today, but I don't. So we'll try to get something. Yes, Linda. Sorry. All right. Oh, okay, sorry. I did call on you, Linda, but you were busy writing something. Go ahead.
I just have a quick question. We know we were just told by Ambassador Kraft that the Security Council is going to Washington to meet with President Trump on Thursday. I was just wondering if there are any plans in the offing in terms of the SG meeting with the president. I think traditionally there may be a meeting in January or in the new year.
No, I mean, no plans that I'm aware of. Yep. Your microphone, Toby, please. There you go.
Toby Burns, NHK. Recent anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall about a couple of weeks ago. Just looking for a statement from the SG on Cold War era policies and where we stand looking back at that legacy now.
I would, instead of listening to a spokesman, I would refer you to a tweet that he posted. What day is today? When he was in Berlin last week, and he visited the wall, where, if I recall, he said how much he recalled the watching the wall fall back in 1989, and also referred to the risk of new walls going up in different parts of the world, both virtual and real. But I would refer you to his exact tweet. Thank you. On that note, I was about to say have a good weekend, because why not? We wish. One can always hope. What? Yeah, I know exactly. We could call a snow day, if only. Put the lid on it. Put the lid.